this little kind of warm up activity is just to get your brains thinking about these items that are on the screen, listed A, B, C, D, or E. Which of them you think came first? In other words, which ones do you think were the least complex? Very, very simple things versus the things that are a little bit more complex, a little bit more complicated. A is supposed to be representing an organism, an entire organism, just like you and I. B is supposed to represent a single organ. C represents a organ system. And D is supposed to represent tissues. And E is supposed to represent a cell.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house. It has a crowd.
So today what we are going to be doing is we're going to do a short activity to help us to better understand some of our new concepts that we're going to be building on. So to get ourselves ready for this activity, I would like you to think about your house. You are most likely in your house right now, as we all have been over the last few weeks. I want you to think, is your house made up of one solid part, just one big solid continuous part, or do you think that it's made up of smaller parts that are then going to build upon each other? If you've ever used Legos before, you may have noticed that you have different parts. You take those smaller parts and you put them together in order to build these big, cool structures. So our houses are just like that as well. What we want to think about now is, are our bodies maybe like that? We want to try to see if we can maybe brainstorm some examples of how maybe your body might be made up of smaller parts that get put together, just like our houses are made up of smaller parts that get put together.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of
So, our next steps are going to get ourselves ready to do the activity. What we're going to do is we're going to use these to help us maybe better understand what happens with our cells and in our bodies. So, the very first thing I want you to think about that this is a cube. I want you to think about your house and I want you to think about what kind of thing a cube like this, just one cube, represent in your house. Cubes could represent just one single brick. And we know in order to build our houses, we have to take a bunch of bricks together to hopefully make something like a wall. So what we're going to do, now I'm going to take apart my wall for a second. Remember, one cube equals a brick, and a bunch of bricks together made a wall. But let's talk about what the cube or what the brick represents inside of our bodies. If you got cell, you are a rock star. So each of these cubes is going to represent a cell in our body. So let's recap. We took this cube, which is a cell. We put a bunch of them all together. So I'm taking a bunch of different cells and I am putting them all together in order to form this wall-looking structure. Now, if each orange cube is one cell, I have many cells that have been put together. Does anybody know what we call that when we have a bunch of different cells put together? You guessed tissue. You are one smart cookie. So what you're looking at right now is an example of a tissue. So a tissue is made up of one or more than one cell. Okay. I want you to notice though, this is orange. If you are observant, you notice that all of the cubes in this one wall are the same color. So if they're the same color, that maybe might represent that they're the same type of cell. Cells can actually be called what's known as specialized. So a cell could potentially be so special and specific that it's going to only be able to provide certain functions and do certain functions. So what helps me kind of better understand this words is our doctors. Our doctors can specialize in different things. They could be surgeons, they could be heart doctors, they could work in physical therapy, all different specialties. So if we tried to take a heart surgeon and make them try to do brain surgery, that heart surgeon might be able to do it, but chances are they're not going to know what to do. You're going to notice that the orange cubes, the blue cubes, and the green cubes are never going to get mixed together. So what that means is that if each one of these, green versus orange, represent tissues, my tissues are different colors. One is completely orange, one is completely green. So a tissue cannot be made up of the same type of cell. We cannot make a wall with these cubes with a mix of green and with orange. They all have to be green. They all have to be orange because they're all the same. They're all the same type of cell. I'm going to take all of my 4 walls and I'm going to make a room. Okay, so to recap again, one cube is a cell. A bunch of the cubes together in the same color is called a tissue. So now all of these different tissues put together are going to form So we had left off with this representing an organ because it is made up of different tissues, and each tissue is made up of multiple cells. So what will happen if I take this room, let's say this is my kitchen in my house, okay, and let's say that this is the living room. They look the same, right? Then this is an organ. This is representing an organ. So what would happen if I had a 2-story kind of house like this? I had 2 rooms sitting on top of each other. So in other words, I have combined 2 organs together. What do you think that this would be called if I have more than one organ together? You guessed an organ system. You are awesome. So a type of organ system that's very common is our digestive system. Very important. And our digestive system is made up of more than one organ, like our stomach, maybe our intestines. So when they are working together, they form the digestive system. So far we have organ, together, organ system. Alrighty, now the moment you have all been waiting for. So this was the organ, an organ. they got put together to form an organ system. Okay, let's say that we have another two-story house like this, and we add on even more layers. Yes, I know this one doesn't have a second story. I don't have any more cubes at my house. They're all in the classroom, unfortunately. Let's just imagine that this was also two stories. So in other words, this is an organ system. This is an organ system. So now if we put all the organ systems together, congratulations, we get our bodies. Okay, so go ahead and stick around for a quick recap on what
In
we
the middle of our street, our house. In the middle of our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening, and it's usually quite